What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up our coverage over the Mutant Massacre event with the final 3 chapters for this crossover. Now remember, this was the first X-Men crossover that was ever done in Marvel Comics. Now with that being said, remember, the Mutant Massacre was basically a group of characters known as the Marauders went into the tunnels of the Morlocks and began to kill off Morlocks left and right, no matter if they were a man, a woman, or a child. They were being killed off no matter what. And so X-Men and X-Factor got involved in the middle of this event, and also Thor as well. Now, when it comes to the final 3 chapters of this crossover, another Marvel superhero is also going to be involved in this event, and that would be Daredevil. Yes, you heard that right. Daredevil is going to fight against Sabertooth to be part of the Mutant Massacre event. Now we do get into X Factor number 11 for the first chapter of today's video. Now remember, when it comes to X Factor, around this point in time, it was the original 5 X-Men: Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, Beast, and Angel. And the reason why these 5 characters came back together as a new team is because they all left the X-Men hoping the new X-Men would be able to carry out Charles Xavier's dream. Unfortunately, they believe the new X-Men are not doing a good job with that, and so they went out of their way to form a new team known as X Factor. Now when it comes to the public, X Factor is better known as a group of people who go out of their way to hunt mutants down. Matter of fact, they pretend to be humans who are hunting down mutants, but in reality they are a group of characters who are going out of their way to help mutants get a better situation, to get out of bad spots in their lives, to actually help mutants out. And so it's them saying, at least we are able to say we're still carrying on Charles Xavier's dream. And so as we dive into X Factor issue number 11, we do pick up with Beast and Iceman, who are currently trying their best to get some more survivors of the Morlocks back to their base to get them some medical help. But the problem is though, on their way there, they run into some Morlocks who believe that Beast and Iceman are actually Marauders. Of course, the group of characters who are currently going around killing off different members of the Morlocks. And so you do have Beast and Iceman try to say, hey, we are not Marauders, we are X Factor, but that was also a mistake because again, when it comes to the public, they believe that X Factor is a group of characters who go out of their way to hunt down mutants. But in reality, they go out of their way to help get mutants out of bad situations. But the problem is, right now, this group of Morlocks are not trying to listen at all. And so they continue to attack Beast and also Iceman. Now we do pick up with Cyclops and Jean Grey. Now remember, when it comes to these 2 characters, Cyclops and Jean Grey continue on in the tunnels to look for their lost friend Artie, who was a trainee to become the next member of X Factor. Now they were able to find him, and so they're trying to get the heck out of there. Now here's the thing, because when it comes to Artie, he cannot communicate like how most people do. Unfortunately, he has to rely on his mutant ability, which is that he is able to project different kinds of images as a way to say, hey, this is what I am thinking about. And sometimes he's able to access other people's minds to see what they're actually thinking. Now, when it comes to Cyclops and Jean Grey, they're trying to get Angel back over to their base to get some medical help because he was also injured in an earlier chapter. Now, here's the thing though, guys, because Angel and Jean Grey around this time were about to fall in love with one another. Now, that might sound weird to you, but the thing is, ever since Stan Lee days, Angel has always tried to make moves on Jean Grey ever when she is single. And right now, she is single. And the reason why? Because Cyclops is he is married to Madeline Pryor. And matter of fact, they have a son together. And so Cyclops is taken, Jean Grey is a free agent, and Angel is trying to get with her. And with all that being said, because Angel thought that he was going to die, he told Artie, hey, if I do die, make sure you tell Jean Grey this right here, that I loved her. And so even though you have two heroes trying to get Angel, who's still alive, back to their base to give him some medical help, is Artie saying, if he does not make it, I'm going to tell you right now that he really did love Jean Grey. And that's huge. Now, you do hear Cyclops and Jean Grey hear some noise, and they're kind of like, what in the world is going on? And they come to find out it is Iceman and Beast currently fighting against a group of characters who are better known as the Tunnelers. Now, when it comes to the Tunnelers, they are a group of Morlocks who are kind of like the hotheads of the Morlocks. And most of the time, they keep to themselves because of their attitudes. Now, here's the thing, because even though you have Beast and Iceman trying to say they are actually innocent, these guys are not trying to hear them at all. And so it does lead into a battle where Cyclops has to get involved and clear everything up. Like, yes, we are X Factor. Yes, we are known as mutant hunters, but in reality, we're not mutant hunters. We're here to help mutants out. So please stop attacking us, listen, and let's get the heck out of here, because you have survivors, I have survivors who need some medical help, and we have a place that can give them some medical help. Now, with all that being said, that is when they feel a huge amount of heat coming their way. And we already know why, because in the earlier chapters of Mutant Massacre, Thor felt like it was a good idea to give the folks who had died in the tunnels, the Morlocks, a Viking funeral to burn their bodies up, not alive, but burn their bodies. Either way, he does burn their bodies. All that heat, all that flames are going through the tunnels right now to kill off all the dead bodies of the Morlocks. And so it's our heroes saying we have to get inside before those flames are able to grab us and kill us off. Now, once you have our heroes being able to get back to their base, the X Factor base, and give the Morlocks who survived the attack of the Marauders some medical help, they send Angel away to a nearby hospital. Now, the reason why Angel is able to go away and not the others is because word got out that Warren Warrington, aka Angel, is for some reason funding the entire operations of X Factor, and that seems weird to the public because Angel is a well-known mutant. And so why would a mutant fund mutant hunters to go after his own race? That looks really bad right now when it comes to Angel and X Factor. Either way, because the world knows that he is Angel, but on top of that he is funding X Factor, they are able to send him to a nearby hospital. Except when it comes to the rest of the Morlocks, it's kind of like, no, we can't send them anywhere because humans hate mutants a lot. At least with Warren and his money, he'll be able to get the medical he needs. But when it comes to these guys, they don't have that kind of money. And so unfortunately, they cannot get the medical attention, but also the protection from humans who might hate them. But you also have the Tunnelers leave as well. Now, the reason why the Tunnelers leave is because they feel like they cannot trust X Factor at all. They feel like X Factor is actually going to trick them and give them over to the police. Because remember, X Factor is known as a group of mutant hunters. And so they're saying even though Cyclops and other Morlocks were able to clear the name of X Factor, the Tunnelers still do not believe them at all. And so they leave. Now, there was a crowd of people who were surrounding the building, but you have the Tunnelers say that they were just a cleaning crew and they just got done cleaning, so they're going to go ahead and leave, which they do. Except when they do go to a nearby pier, they are bothered by a group of thugs. Now, these thugs were just harassing them at first, except once you have these thugs, these regular humans realize the Tunnelers are a group of mutants. They go out of their way and try to kill off the Tunnelers. And it does lead into a huge battle where you do have some members of the Tunnelers get shot and killed, and some members of the thugs are killed off by the Tunnelers. And so just like that, this had turned into a bloody match. Now we do see that Cyclops and Jean Grey are currently waiting in the waiting room to see how bad is Angel's injuries, except while waiting, they hear the latest news report about what is happening with the tunnelers. And Cyclops and Jean Grey, they know what in the world is going on. And so they begin to freak out, kind of like, we have to go and we have to stop the tunnelers right now before more innocent people are killed off. Now, we do pick up with a character known as Abraham Lincoln Heroes. Now, when it comes to this character, he was actually paralyzed from the neck down, and so unfortunately, he is trapped inside an iron lung machine to keep him alive. Now, I'm not going to sit down and try to explain his powers at all, really. The only thing you need to know about this guy in this one single page is that Apocalypse does arrive and says when it comes to Abraham, he has a great amount of power that can be used for greatness down the road. And so as soon as he arrives, you have Apocalypse go ahead and teleport him and Abraham out of the hospital, and we have no idea where they went to, but Apocalypse does say that Abraham will be his second horseman. And remember, in the earlier chapters, we saw Apocalypse get his first horseman, and so now he only needs 2 more. And so when Cyclops and Jean Grey arrive at the scene, they do see the tunnelers fighting against the police officers. Now here comes the problem though, because when it comes to police officers, even though they just have guns, those guns are able to shoot and kill people. And so some members of the tunnelers are shot and killed, which of course upset tunnelers even more to attack the police officers. Now, while you have both parties fighting against each other, you do have Cyclops and Jean Grey step in. Here comes the problem though, because even though our heroes do step in, Cyclops has to use his powers on the tunnelers to stop them, because their powers are way more dangerous than the ones who have guns, the police officers. And so when it came to Cyclops, he had to use his optic beam, and he shot the leader of the group of the tunnelers into the water. And because his water was electric based, well, of course, he kind of died as soon as his body hit the water. And so he's gone, and other members of the tunnelers are also gone. Now, when it comes to Mask, she is now the last surviving member of that particular group. But Cyclops now feels bad about what he had to do to stop this war between the two sides here. But Jean Grey said you had no choice, because if you did not make a move like you did, he would have killed the police officers, and we would have more hate on us because we are mutants, and humans already hate us a lot, and that's a problem right there. Now, the last couple pages really do pick up on 2 different things happening. The first is that we pick up with a character known as Boom Boom. Now, when it comes to Boom Boom, she has the ability to basically make small energy bombs that can cause huge explosions. Now, when it came to Boom Boom, around this point in time in Marvel Comics, she was actually a thief for a guy who would just only get girl thieves only. Now, when it comes to Boom Boom, she's tired of working for him. And so she says she's going to leave his group and go on her own, which of course kind of opens the door for her to join the X-Men, X-Factor, or possibly the New Mutants. But at the very end of the last page, we come to find out that Cyclops and Jean Grey, they do get word of how severe the injuries are for Angel. And we come to find out Angel might have to lose his wings. But unfortunately, the next chapter, we have to jump over to Daredevil as he fights against Sabertooth. And so getting into Daredevil number 238, we do pick up with Sabertooth going after a group of teenagers. Now, the reason why he is doing this because by this point in the actual storyline, most of the Morlocks, really all of the Morlocks, are gone completely. They're dead or they're with the X-Men or X-Factor, or they had ran away. And so the tunnels of the Morlocks are basically up for grab. And so you have different groups of gang members or teenagers just trying to claim their own area in the tunnels of the Morlocks. And when it comes to Sabertooth, well, he was still down there. And so he's kind of like, listen, if you're down here, you're free game. That means I can go ahead and kill you off if I wanted to. And so you have Sabertooth begin to attack a group of teenagers. Now they are able to get away except for one, a young girl. Now we can kind of see right here that when it comes to Sabertooth, his mind is like an animal. But sometimes he still wants to be with someone. He still wants to have a mate. And so when it comes to this young girl, he looks at her as like a possibility of becoming a mate. Now, we do jump over to Daredevil, and when we do, it's really more of Matt Murdock just going around Hell's Kitchen to kind of give us a look at how bad Hell's Kitchen truly is. And honestly, it's pretty bad. Now, he kind of gives us some examples of two random dogs fighting against each other and some other crimes happening here and there. Now, that is the moment where he realized that he is near a crime, where you have two thugs who are currently trying to rob a fellow. And so you have Matt Murdock jump in as Daredevil to stop these two thugs. Now, this fight does not last that long because, again, these guys are just regular guys. These guys are very easy for a hero to actually take down. But once he does that, well, it does lead into a conversation between him and the guy that he just saved, where we kind of find out that this guy is very upset with Matt Murdock. And the reason why, because in a previous storyline, Matt had to fight against a character known as Nuke. And when they fought against each other, it did cause a lot of damage to a Pacific neighborhood in Hell's Kitchen, where a lot of stores were technically destroyed. And one of the stores that was destroyed was this guy right here that Matt Murdock just saved from these thugs. And so when it comes to this guy, he's kind of like, I don't really care that you saved me, because even though you did, your last battle just ruined my life, ruined my future. I have no story anymore. I'm just basically ruined. And Matt kind of realized the guy does have the right to be upset. And so you do have Matt return his wallet, and Matt walks away from the conversation. Now we do jump over to two random siblings. Now the girl, her name is Darla, and her brother Butch. Now when it comes to these two kids, they're just watching television, minding their business, and also playing pranks on one another. Except that is the moment where their father comes home. Now when their father comes home, he's kind of like the guy we saw earlier, where he does express the idea that he does not like superheroes at all. Now we have no idea if their father is the same guy we saw earlier that Matt had just saved. All we know is that this guy in the shadows is also expressing the same thing about the idea that his kids will not be praising or looking up to superheroes. The only heroes they should look up to are your usual heroes. So like police officers or firefighters, and that is it. Now with all that being said, he did tell his kids to go to the library, but they better not hang out with that gang again. And apparently they go out at night sometimes and hang out with a group of kids who are part of a gang. Except they don't do what their father had asked them to do. Instead, they actually go hang out with the gang of kids in the old parts of the Morlock tunnels. Because like I said earlier, with the Morlocks no longer being around, their tunnels are up for grabs. And so you do have different gangs, different people trying to claim different parts of the Morlock tunnels. Now when it comes to this gang of children, they are confronted by Sabertooth. Now when it comes to Sabertooth, even though his job is technically done, in his mind it's not done, because you still have people constantly coming into the sewers of the Morlock tunnels. And so you do have Sabertooth down with the idea of killing off these kids, except you didn't have Butch, the kid we met earlier, say that this part of town, Hell's Kitchen, is protected by Daredevil. Now when it comes to Sabertooth, he never heard of Daredevil. But he's kind of like, you say this guy named Daredevil protects this area. Is he an actual challenge? Oh, he is? Well, you know what? Now I want to fight him. And matter of fact, it doesn't take Sabertooth that long to be able to find Daredevil. And so once he does, the next few pages is really more of these two characters fighting against each other. Now, when it comes to their battle, like I said, it does last for a few pages, but when it comes to Daredevil, he realized that Sabertooth is kind of like a wild animal, just going all over the place. His fighting styles is kind of hard for Matt to pick up, to learn how to dodge, but to also how to attack. Now, when it comes to Sabertooth, he realized that most of his usual tricks are not going to work on Daredevil because of his radar. And so these two characters are trying to adapt to one another in their own kind of unique ways. Now, when it comes to Sabertooth, he kind of like, you know what? I'm done fighting you. It's time for me to get the heck out of here. And so you have Sabertooth go back into the sewers, but you also have Matt Murdock follow Sabertooth into the sewers. And so the battle continues on in there. Now, when it comes to Sabertooth, the reason why he went into the sewers was him kind of hoping that he may be able to lose Daredevil. But the thing is, he feels like it's too dark down there that he'll be able to use the darkness to lose Matt, but Matt is blind. But Matt does rely on his other senses to help guide him through the tunnels. And so, unfortunately, when it comes to Sabertooth, his master plan is not going to work. The battle continues on. Now, as they fight, they go back to the same area where Sabertooth held that young girl at. And so Matt knows that Sabertooth has a hostage. And so this is him saying, okay, I have to go out of my way to save her life. Now, as the fight goes on, that is when Sabertooth realized that Matt Murdock is blind, because a dead body, one of the Morlocks, does land right next to Daredevil. And usually you're just able to look at a dead body and be all like, okay, they're dead. Except for Matt, it's kind of his other senses trying to help tell him, hey, this is a dead body next to you. And so Sabertooth was able to realize at that point, oh, you're blind. Now, when it comes to Sabertooth, he does go after the young girl that he had kidnapped earlier, and he does slash her throat. Now, we're left to believe that she is dead, except she's not dead. But for right now, we don't know that. When it comes to Matt, he asks Sabertooth one question. Are you happy now? Is your hunger satisfied that you were able to kill somebody? But because Sabertooth's like a wild animal, he's kind of like, no, I hunger for more. Now, he does not stay to fight against Daredevil because he realized he cannot win that battle, and so he runs away. But when it comes to Matt, we do get some good news. The young girl got her throat cut earlier actually survived. And she can kind of tell us here that when it comes to Sabertooth, even though he is a wild animal, he is still looking for a companion, somebody to love. He feels lonely, but that hunger inside of him to kill is just too big for him to control. And so this chapter ends on that note right there. Now, the last chapter of the Mutant Massacre takes place in Uncanny X-Men number 213. Now, with this chapter right here, we do pick up with Psylocke at first. Now, when it comes to Psylocke, around this point in time, she was not part of the X-Men, nor the New Mutants. She was kind of just there to be there. They were trying to figure out what her placement would actually be. And so currently she is helping out the X-Men, but she's not an official X-Men. Now, Charles Xavier is gone, but Magneto took his place as the headmaster of the school. Now, when it comes to Psylocke, she's trying to use Cerebro as a way to check in on every single person at the mansion. That means the X-Men, Moira McTaggart, and all survivors of the Morlocks who got out there of the Mutant Massacre. Now, when it comes to Psylocke, she also kind of reminds us of different things going on when it comes to the X-Men. For example, Kitty Pryde. Because remember, at the very beginning of the Mutant Massacre, Kitty Pryde was hit in the back by one of the Marauders, which of course messed up her powers. And so unfortunately, she is unable to stop phasing. And so she's now stuck inside a machine until they are able to figure out how to turn her power off. Because if they don't, they have no idea what could possibly happen to her. There is something else I do want to mention. I know that somebody out there is going to actually bring this up, but it's basically about the idea that around this point, Psylocke was kind of in love with Cypher, and this was one of those weird relationships we had in the early days of Marvel Comics where you had a grown adult being in love with a child or a teenager, and for some reason you are supposed to be okay with this. And so when it came to Psylocke, she was kind of in love with Cypher, and he was kind of in love with her as well. Now we do jump back over to the X-Men, who are currently right now in the sewers because there is a tunnel that goes right underneath the X-Mansion that leads back over to the Morlock tunnels. Now when it comes to our heroes here, they're very upset about the idea of what happened recently in the sewers. Somebody had burned all the dead bodies of the Morlocks. Now we already know who that was. That was Thor, because he felt like it would be a great thing to give these guys a Viking funeral. And so he burned all their bodies to get rid of them, but to also bury them. And so when it comes to the X-Men, they had no idea that Thor did that, because Thor only talked to X-Factor, not to the X-Men. And so they're wondering who in the world did this? Who burned all the dead bodies? Now, they also realize the New Mutants are missing, but the New Mutants had also used the tunnels of the Morlocks to go into the city. And we saw that in their chapter, and really, their chapter only had a small part when it comes to the actual Mutant Massacre. But the thing is, now you have Magneto freaking out because now his students are missing, and the only trail they had is now just wiped away clean. And so they have no idea how to find the New Mutants. And now you didn't have Psylocke come in with Cerebro to basically say that what she can do is use Cerebro to hopefully locate a new mutant or to locate a Marauder, to gain information from the Marauder to hopefully learn more about them, but to also see if that Marauder may have an idea what happened to the New Mutants. And so she does use her abilities with Cerebro. When she does that, she tries to read the mind of, well, a Marauder who is apparently nearby the X-Mansion. Now, we're not told which Marauder it is, but apparently this one right here has some high defenses when it comes to his mind being protected by psychics. Now we kind of find out the mind that she read belonged to Sabertooth. Now when it comes to Sabertooth, remember that he is part of the Marauders, but when it comes to Sabertooth, his mind is well trained, it's well protected. And so a lot of times, if you're not a well trained psychic, most of the time you will not be able to read his mind. And so he was able to send a feedback that did make her go a tad bit crazy. Now, once she's able to regain herself and realize that Sabertooth is trying to kill her, her main goal is to keep him busy long enough until the rest of the X-Men are able to show up and to help her out when it comes to defeating Sabertooth. And so after a few pages, you then do have the other X-Men arrive to help her. Now, when it comes to the X-Men arriving, it really is more of Wolverine fighting Sabertooth round 2. Yes, you do have other members of the X-Men help out, but the main two characters who are currently fighting is Wolverine and Sabertooth. Now, while the two characters are fighting against each other, Psylocke realized that if she is able to read his mind now, he'll be too distracted when it comes to trying to fight against Wolverine. And so with them being distracted, she should be able to enter his mind and gain the information the X-Men want to know about the Marauders. And so she goes ahead and does her work. And so just like that, she is able to get a lot of information from his mind. And then once she is done, Wolverine is able to get rid of Sabertooth. Technically, the two of them do fall off a cliff into the ocean, and Wolverine wants to go ahead and continue to fight against Sabertooth to, you know, kill him off. But the X-Men say he's gone. Now, when it comes to Wolverine, he wants to make sure that Sabertooth is gone. But they're like, nah, dude, he's gone. And matter of fact, Psylocke powers say that he is gone. So let's go ahead and just regroup back at the X Mansion. Now, the final page of this story is going to be really more of Psylocke joining the X-Men, because thanks to her, they were able to get a lot of information out of the mind of Sabertooth, to learn more about the Marauders, to learn who is in charge of the Marauders. And so because of that right there, it made her become a member of the X-Men. And that is the end of the Mutant Massacre. Now, there were some plot lines we did not close off when it comes to this ending, but those plot lines do end in later chapters in their own separate books. So for X Factor, for New Mutants, X-Men, we didn't really cover Thor's stuff or really Matt Murdock's Daredevil stuff, but again, all those plot lines got handled in later chapters. Either way, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.